What are you hearing? When do we think we are going to get the Suez reopening?
Well, that's the million-dollar question at the moment. An attempt today failed. I think they're getting another larger tug in on Sunday. There's a high tide on Monday, and so it's anyone's guess. For 3 consecutive days, attempts have failed.
I'm confused about the response from the energy sector. You had a big sell-off yesterday. You're having some big gains today, and I'm trying to figure out if there are real concerns about supply chain disruptions.
Well, on one level, when it comes to oil, there has been some speculative increases in prices, but I mean, there are other sources of oil, and also the strength and demand isn't there that you see on the container ship side, and it's on the consumer side, the retail and manufacturing side, where I think the interruptions are going to be most significant. Today, we've started seeing container ships divert around the Cape of Good Hope, both on backhaul voyages from Europe back to Asia, and also we've seen Evergreen, the line that operates the vessel that's stuck in the canal. We've seen them divert a Europe-bound vessel around the Cape. So that's already going to cause some disruptions. It's also transatlantic trades. They're diverting a couple of vessels now. So that is going to result in interruptions with vessels arriving on the Asia side and the Europe side. So this will have effects that will last weeks, if not months, even if it's cleared on Monday or Tuesday.
If I'm a captain and I'm arriving at the back of the list, Michelle, even if it was cleared today, how long would it take to get all of the ships that are currently at either end through the canal and on their ways?
Well, you kind of have to do the maths. The canal is capable of transiting about 50 vessels a day. And we've calculated so far, there's about 250 vessels now waiting at queues either end. And that queue is growing about 14% every day for the last 3 days. So container lines and vessel operators and owners have to weigh the extra time to go around the Cape, which is about, between 12 and 15 days, depending on the speed, as to whether or not they wait or whether or not they take the risk and they move around the longer way.
Who eventually bears the extra cost for the rerouted and longer time that we're seeing?
That's not really something that we know about, but the freight cost is a very small part of the overall cost, especially for the high value consumer goods that are going through, that are on the box ships that are being diverted at the moment.
This thing has got, what, 20,000 containers on it? It's huge.
Correct.
They widened the canal a few years back. And I'm just wondering whether the infrastructure is really up to the task and whether or not actually one of the lessons learned from this, the longer term effects from this, is that we need to rethink our approach. These vessels have been getting bigger and bigger. It's absolutely ginormous. It's an Eiffel Tower lying on its side with 20,000 containers on top of it. Michelle, what needs to happen to avoid this happening again?
Well, so far, we've tracked about 130 vessels of this size alone this year have gone through the Suez Canal. So, I mean, it really it should be incident free. But because of the size, when something does happen, that's when it becomes a problem of such huge magnitude. I think until the vessel investigation is complete and we know what the cause was, which is still unknown and there's conflicting stories, we don't even know what the risk is for these vessels continuing to sail through.
Michelle, you talked about the extra equipment turning up at the weekend. How much kit, when this happens, and let's assume that we're seeing more and more of these big ships coming out of cradles and ultimately ending up within the fleet, do we have the kit necessary to deal with problems? Because this is a major bottleneck. But the amount of, as you say, goods that are on the water at the moment and are so critical with just-in-time supply chains, do we need to see more investment in just the kit necessary to keep everything moving quickly?
Well, this is one of the problems that the world salvors have been talking about. This is not something new they've been saying. They've there's a lot of vessel sizes in all categories have been growing quite considerably in the last, say, 10 or 15 years. And even back to, remember the Costa Concordia, the giant cruise ship that sunk off Italy. There were questions raised then about are cruise ships too big now? So with larger ships come larger problems, and the salvers, even if you had to dismantle and bring down some of the boxes from the vessel that's stuck there now, because, with 20,000 on board, they're stacked very high. You have to get cranes and equipment that hasn't been built in order to solve this kind of problem.